Rachel is a prominent figure in the Hebrew Scriptures, the Old Testament, and holds deep significance within Jehovah's Witness teachings. Her life story is primarily found in the book of Genesis, specifically chapters 29 through 35, and Jehovah's Witnesses often refer to these accounts when studying Rachel's character and example. Let's explore her life, family relationships, notable traits, and lasting influence as presented in publications such as the Insight on the Scriptures and articles on jw.org. Family background and first meeting with Jacob. Rachel was the younger daughter of Laban, the maternal uncle of Jacob. The Bible describes her as exceedingly beautiful. When Jacob fled from his brother Esau's anger, he traveled to Haran, where he encountered Rachel at a well, watering her father's flock. Genesis chapter 29 verses 9 to 12. Jehovah's Witnesses highlight this account to illustrate how their marriage came about in a manner that involved family consent and blessings, underlining scriptural guidelines for marriage. Jacob's deep love for Rachel. Jacob loved Rachel so much that he agreed to serve Laban for 7 years in exchange for her hand in marriage. However, Laban deceitfully substituted her older sister, Leah, on the wedding night. Jacob only realized the switch the following morning. Genesis chapter 29 verses 21 to 25. Despite the trickery, Jacob eventually married Rachel as well, under the condition that he serve Laban another 7 years. Jehovah's Witness literature emphasizes Jacob's unwavering devotion. He worked double the time because of his love for her, which stands as one of the Bible's memorable portrayals of marital affection and endurance. A household filled with tension. The ensuing relationship dynamics between Rachel, her sister Leah, and Jacob are deeply layered. Leah bore children first, which caused Rachel to feel frustrated and jealous. Genesis chapter 30 verse 1. At that time, in the ancient Near East, childbearing was closely tied to a woman's sense of honor and blessing from God. Rachel's infertility initially intensified her emotional struggles, something Jehovah's Witnesses acknowledge as a very human response to challenging circumstances. She resorted to giving her maidservant Bilhah to Jacob as a surrogate. Genesis chapter 30 verses 3 to 8. A practice consistent with cultural norms of that era but not necessarily an ideal arrangement. Yet, this narrative highlights Rachel's deep longing for motherhood. Birth of Joseph and Benjamin. In time, Jehovah blessed Rachel by opening her womb, resulting in the birth of Joseph. Genesis chapter 30 verses 22 to 24. Later, while traveling away from Laban's household, Rachel conceived again. Unfortunately, her second pregnancy was fraught with complications. She gave birth to her youngest son, Benjamin, but died in childbirth. Genesis chapter 35 verses 16 to 19. Rachel's death on the road to Ephrath, Bethlehem, became a poignant moment in Israel's early history. She never settled in the Promised Land in a permanent way. Her burial site near Bethlehem would later be referenced in biblical prophecies and Jewish tradition. Jehovah's Witnesses often note this part of her life to emphasize both the joy and the sorrow that can accompany Jehovah's blessings when imperfection and tragedy strike in human life. Rachel's positive traits and flaws. Jehovah's Witnesses view Rachel as a woman with laudable traits, including resilience, hope, and devotion, though she also struggled with jealousy and impatience. For instance, at one point, Rachel was caught taking her father Laban's household idols, Genesis chapter 31 verse 19, which may have reflected lingering cultural attachments or superstitions from her environment. From the standpoint of Jehovah's Witness teachings, any reliance on idol objects was against Jehovah's standards, but her action also highlights a learning curve for the patriarchal family as they grew in their knowledge of pure worship. This episode serves as a scriptural cautionary tale regarding the dangers of idolatry and the importance of exclusive devotion to God. Role in Israel's lineage. Rachel is recognized as one of the 4 key matriarchs in Israel's family line. As the mother of Joseph, she had a direct role in setting up the lineage that would eventually spread throughout Egypt during the famine. Joseph, beloved by his father Jacob, rose to prominence in Egypt. Genesis chapters 37 to 50. Rachel's second son, Benjamin, became the progenitor of the tribe of Benjamin, one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Thus, in Jehovah's Witnesses' viewpoint, Rachel's family lineage was instrumental in the formation of God's chosen nation and in fulfilling his promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Prophetic overtones. The biblical references to Rachel continue into later scriptures. For instance, Jeremiah chapter 31 verse 15 poetically depicts Rachel weeping for her children, symbolizing Israel's suffering during the time of Babylonian conquest. In the Christian Greek scriptures, Matthew chapter 2 verses 17, 18. This verse is applied to the tragic events surrounding King Herod's massacre of young children in Bethlehem after Jesus' birth. Jehovah's Witnesses understand this imagery as a prophetic echo. Rachel, symbolically, was mourning over the descendants she bore, the tribes of Joseph and Benjamin, tying her story from the Hebrew scriptures forward into the Christian era. Lessons for modern-day worshippers. Jehovah's Witnesses glean several lessons from Rachel's life, applying them to modern Christian worship and family life. One lesson often stressed is that personal jealousy can derail peace within a family. Rachel's rivalry with Leah is a cautionary account of the emotional turmoil that can arise when seeking blessings in a competitive spirit rather than relying patiently on Jehovah's timing. Another lesson is that faith and persistence can lead to blessings, as seen in Rachel's event.